We are now down to 10 through 1. We have made it. Thursday, March 6th in the year of our Lord, 2024, 5, not 4, 5. And we are rocking and rolling 10 through 1. We started with 50 through 41 on the 200th episode of Pigskin Frenzy, going to 201 with 40 through 31, going to 202 with 30 through 21, going to 203 with 20 through 11, and now at 204, 10 through 1. Our last countdown and our last selection of Frenzy's top 50 games of the 2024 college football season in our rankings, in our value, how we view it, and how our metric is. Some of y'all have disagreed with the games. Some of y'all have disagreed with the take and the critique of our football games and how we have, placed the football games there, and that's fine. Some of y'all have agreed, which is, hey, good. I mean, I'm glad you love our takes or love my take, but here's the deal. It's all for the love of college football, and it's for the love of the sport. Guys, we're ready. We're pumped. We have 3 honorable mentions before we do 10 through 1. We're ready. I'm ready. I'm pumped. Guys, welcome to Pigskin Frenzy on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joel Norris. And whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, listening on Apple, listening on Podbean, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Thursday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple, all you got to do is just share around with others and follow on there as well. X and Instagram at Pigskin_Frenzy. Follow, like, share around on the, like each comment down below. You're going to get news, highlights, and my own thoughts about college football and NFL on occasion. You're going to also get, Instagram stories and trivia posts on those Instagram stories. Go and answer today's college football question, as well as all things up to date for Pigskin Frenzy, content reels for more, all access with Pigskin Frenzy on both X and Instagram. Keep plugging along, keep following along. You'll get exclusives like no other on those platforms. You can also check out the website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. There you will find a store and affiliations page. More on that one coming soon. There's platforms page, all the platforms I just mentioned. Go and click on which one's your favorite listening style of the podcast and the show. There's a home and about me page. Learn more about me as your podcast host. There's also a contact info down below. Contact me, name, email, question. I'll answer it on air or off air if need be. Everything up to date coming along with Pigskin Frenzy on the website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. More on everything coming soon with the website. Guys, here we go. Frenzy's top 50 games of the 2024 season for college football concludes today with 10 through 1. We've been counting down the list, and if you've been following along on the episodes, on the show, but also on X and Instagram, go and listen. I mean, go and listen. Go and look at the X and Instagram as well. There's been reels. There's been content that I've been delivering. I'm going to keep delivering them. Thank you for liking them. Thank you for viewing it. Guys, we're building. We're just building and building. About to be at 4,600 listeners, guys. Keep plugging in to the show. Almost near 4,600 listeners. Let's gain those listeners. Let's get more listeners to the show. Let's really build, right? Let's just push to the moon. I'm pushing it to the moon. Let's go with our college football show, Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, 10 through 1 on our list. We have a few honorable mentions, the mentions that did not make the cut, but we're going to talk about the 3 games before we go to 10. 3 honorable mentions, and we're going to kick it off here in a little bit. If you saw 30 through 21 last Tuesday, 203. Thank you for listening. If you haven't listened to it yet, go back and listen to that episode. Also, not only that, guys, there's the list. The list is out yesterday. It came out yesterday, which was Wednesday. Go and check out the post. Like the post. Comment down below if you agree with 20 through 11 on our list. Great. If you have some comments and disagreements, let it be known. I would like to hear from you guys and engage with you guys on that. 20 through 11 was the previous episode and the post on X and Instagram, and we're going to post 10 through 1 tomorrow on Friday on X and Instagram, and as well as this episode's out, now on all platforms. But let's kick it off with the honorable mentions before we get down to the number 1 game. We're finding out, y'all are all going to be along with me, find out the number 1 game of our number one game of the college football season. Let's go with the honorable mentions because they're very interesting. These are the games that did not make the cut. Honorable mentions, we start off with, and they didn't make the cut, but honorable, we're going to honorable mention them. Number one, the Pop-Tart Bowl. The Pop-Tart Bowl of 2024, where Iowa State played Miami, and Iowa State defeated Miami 42-41. I covered this bowl game. I picked Miami to beat them by a touchdown. Iowa State won. Cam Ward only played one half of football and ended up taking himself out of the second half. Everyone's going to say, why would you do that? It's business decision. Everyone's going to disagree and agree with it. But, who knows? Who knows why? Or what really went down. Mario Cristobal did not want to comment on that. But Iowa State played with heart. They played a really competitive football game. Rocco Beck was amazing in that ball game. And the Pop-Tart Bowl was a classic. It went back and forth, a score fest in the first half of football. 21-14. Iowa State scored 21 in the first quarter. Miami scored 14 in the first quarter. It was literally a 35-point first quarter. 35 points total scored in the first quarter. Then 17-7. Miami scored 17. Iowa State scored 7. Tie ball game, 7-7 in the third. Then 7-3 in the fourth where Iowa State scored. And then it ended up being 42-41. Iowa State beat Miami by a point. Back and forth game. Iowa State really wanted it. Rocco Beck and the Cyclones and Matt Campbell got an excellent win. They finished the season 11-3 in the Big 12. So going into 2025, I would pay attention to Iowa State, Matt Campbell, and the Cyclones program up in Ames, Iowa. I think they are a underrated, under-the-radar program. I think they are heading into 2025 with a lot of momentum, even though it was a Pop-Tart Bowl. I still love the Pop-Tart Bowl. I think it's probably it's one of my favorite and fun bowl games ever, especially with the mascot jogging around, and that's just freaking awesome. Iowa State is a program where they could potentially sneak into the college ball playoff and could win the Big 12 going into 2020, going into the next year of 2026. But they could win the Big 12 in December with the talent that they got coming back and a lot of guys that they got on both sides of the ball coming back. I think Iowa State's a really, really good football team heading into 2025. Miami with Carson Beck, it's going to be an interesting scenario there in the ACC, but let's see what happens in 2025 there. But about this ball game, it was back and forth, high-octane offense. Nobody was, letting up on defense, and I think it was just a score fest, and I think that is why I'm putting it in my honorable mentions. I'm not going to put it in other than the other big games because there was a lot better games than that one, but I think it deserves an honorable mention because of how high-octane the game was itself. So final score, 42-41. Iowa State defeating Miami in the Pop-Tart Bowl, and they ate a giant Pop-Tart. How can this not be an honorable mention for Frenzy's top 50 games of the college football season for 2024? I just don't know. I really don't know, guys. Let's talk about another honorable mention, and it's quite interesting, and you're going to think, are you on something? No, I'm not on something with this ball game, but I'm going to tell you this. I thought it was a very strong game, at least in the first half, and then very late, the last 3-4 minutes of the game, it ran away with them. But Texas, Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl, the College Football Playoff Cotton Bowl, is an honorable mention for me. This game was back and forth. I think that Texas's offense, let me just go on and say this. I think this game could have been a blowout, but the way Ohio State was giving it back to Texas and they were kind of letting up, as in giving him the game when it comes to penalties and when it comes to just, Texas playing hard defense. I think that this game is an honorable mention because it went down to the wire. And by the wire, I mean at least around 3.5 minutes in the game where Jack Sawyer made a big play at the end with Quinn Ewers. He strip sacked Quinn Ewers and scoop and score for a touchdown. Epic play to win the game. And then Quinn Ewers threw a pick to Caleb Downs, and Caleb Downs got a huge interception. They need it, and Ohio State went on to the national championship. Epic game. It was an epic game. It really was. But at first, it was back and forth. Ohio State had 9 penalties for 75 yards in that game. Texas couldn't really get anything going on the ground or is really on offense, especially in the first half. Play calling was out of sorts, but at the same time, their defense hung in there. That was the best defense that I think Ohio State's played, not just in the playoff run, but I would say probably all. I wouldn't say all. It would be close to all year. Yeah, I'd say close to all year. Penn State was good. Texas played them hard, and it went down into at least the wire. It was 21-14 within like 3 to 4 minutes left of the game, or 3 minutes left in the game, and then that big strip sack at the end on 4th and goal. Jack Sawyer just, strip sacking him, his old college roommate from Ohio State, fumbles it, scooping scores, and ices the game that way. So I think there was a lot of factors on why this game was an honorable mention. Here's why I think that it didn't make the list. And here's why I'm going to tell you why it did not make the official list, but it's an honorable mention. It's an honorable mention because of those reasons I just mentioned. Let me tell you the reason why it didn't make the official cut. Big reason why is I think this game could have been a lot worse. If it wasn't for Ohio State committing a lot of penalties, I think that this game could have been a lot worse and it could have been a blowout. I think the way Ohio State was moving the ball effectively, they could have beaten Texas a lot worse. I think Texas's play calling and the way they played on offense majority of the time was another big reason why this game didn't make the official cut as well. There's a lot of predominant factors in that. I think those are the main two. I think that Texas brought it at the end. I thought the play calling was off for them. I thought the offense was not in sync. And I think that there was a lot of factors in that why I didn't make the initial cut, but the honorable mentions, yes, because I think they had some big moments that just really led to Ohio State to go to the national championship against Notre Dame. So honorable mention is the Cotton Bowl. Cotton Bowl is the honorable mention. There, Ohio State won 28-14. Ohio State went on to the national championship and went on to win this year's national championship. They are the defending national champions. Let's talk about one more game, and I think this game is very interesting. As I get my notes ready, hold on, let me one more honorable mention before we go to number 10. It's Alabama and South Carolina. That game was crazy. I think the reason why that I didn't put it in the initial cut, I was thinking about it, but I didn't, was because of the play of the game. There was a lot of sloppy play, yes, but it didn't matter because it was still high-octane, entertaining, and it deserves an honorable mention. So Alabama won 27-25. South Carolina, at the half, it was 7-0 in the first quarter, but South Carolina outscored Alabama in the second quarter 12-7. And it was 14-12 at the half, and South Carolina did really, really well in this game. Scored 7-0 in the third quarter. Alabama 13, South Carolina 6. It was back and forth. It was a late onside. South Carolina got the onside to try to make it a win because it was 25-27, and to try to make it a win, they got the onside. Late heroics in this game. It was chaos at the very end. Got the onside, and they recovered it. Because, I'll say this. It was 27-19, Bama, because Jeremy Bernard got a 34-yard pass from Jalen Milroe. And then South Carolina got the ball back. Nick Harbor had a 31-yard pass from Lenora Sellers in Tuscaloosa. And there was a failed two-point conversion. They went for the onside, and South Carolina got the onside. Everybody was stunned. Alabama was on the verge of being upset. And this was October 12th, the week after they got beat by Vanderbilt. And this was a huge game. Huge game for Alabama. They could have lost back-to-back. Jalen Milroe didn't have his best game at all, and South Carolina was taking advantage of that. Defensively, they were all over Alabama's offense, and it was just a chaotic game. Got the onside kick. South Carolina ends up going back. Lenora Sellers drops a bomb, and it was it was a little bit pressured on that pass, and then throws the pick late. Alabama gets the win off of a late interception to avoid a chaotic upset. 27-25, Alabama defeats South Carolina. It was a chaotic game. chaotic game. I love the ending. I thought it was high octane, about to be an upset. It deserves credit for an honorable mention. There was some sloppy play a little bit on both sides of the ball, but for both teams, but it deserves an honorable mention. 27-25, Alabama defeats South Carolina. So those are the honorable mentions for Frenzy's top 50 games of the 2024 college football season. Let's go off with the official list, though. Number 10 on our list for Frenzy's top 50 games of the 2024 season. As I, get my notes ready, 10 through 1. Number 10 on our list is Notre Dame versus Penn State in the College Football Playoff Orange Bowl. You're thinking that game should have been a little bit higher, probably. There's a lot, to me, in my opinion, there's a lot better games than this one. But this game at least is in the top 10 because I think this was a top 10 game all year. It was back and forth. A lot of runs were being made in this. The middle late came into effect with Notre Dame. Late, Penn State was having a heck of an end of a first half, running the ball, scoring. And how was Notre Dame going to respond coming out? Because Penn State was running the ball quite well. Tyler Warren was making some good plays as well. And then all of a sudden, in the middle eight, Notre Dame comes out in the second half. Riley Leonard gets hurt, and then Steve Angeli comes out and plays for him. But Riley Leonard comes back in the game in the start of the second half, leads them down the field, and Notre Dame scores. And then you're thinking, okay, Notre Dame's got some fight in them. They're coming back to score. Let's see how Penn State's going to respond. And then they answered with a heck of a touchdown drive as well. And then Notre Dame answers again with another touchdown. Jaden Greathouse was a predominant factor in this game alongside in the national championship as well. He's a phenomenal receiver. Big touchdown pass later in the game for them. They just kept answering and going back and forth, and nobody was really letting up. It was a physical game up front for both teams. The running backs were all over the field. Jadarian Price was covering a little bit for Jeremiah Love because of his injury, but Jeremiah Love stepped up in a lot of key areas as well. Singleton and Allen played really well, and the running game was getting going for Penn State as well. So it was just a back and forth game, chaotic. And what was so good is that it was tied up 24-24. Drew Allard late in the game had a shot to go down the field and kick a field goal and to win the game to send Penn State to the national championship in Atlanta. So what happened was Drew Allard going for a pass, blindly throws the ball up in the middle, and it's an interception by Notre Dame. Notre Dame picks off Drew Allard, and it puts him in prime field position to win the ball game and to go to the national championship against Ohio State. And you're thinking, oh man, or the winner of Texas and Ohio State rather, but oh man, it's happening. Like Notre Dame could really go to the national championship. And you're thinking to yourself, like, Notre Dame, the same team that suffered a huge week 2 loss. And you would think from week 2, we wouldn't have gone to that game. We wouldn't have been in this position, but here we are. We're in this position. And then all of a sudden, Mitch Jeter comes out, kicks a game-winning field goal, 27-24, and Notre Dame defeats Penn State 27-24 to go to the national championship in the Orange Bowl. Classic of the game. Penn State tried to do the pitch at the end, and all of a sudden, Penn State ends up failing. Notre Dame wins, and it was a huge game and huge costly interception by Drew Allard that leads to a Mitch Jeter field goal for Notre Dame to win the ball game and to go on to eventually face Ohio State in the national championship game in Atlanta. This game was electric. It was probably the second best game in the college football playoff, and I will wholeheartedly admit that. By the way I broke it down, if I broke it down the best, I'm not trying to break down the whole game itself. I'm just giving you my honest thoughts on why I think it's where it's at. I think the atmosphere was great. I think everybody was into it. It drew. I think that the the potential of Notre Dame, and it was a ratings draw because Notre Dame won the ball game. And I don't think they won the ball game. I think it was the ratings draw because it was back and forth. You're thinking, finally, a playoff game where it wasn't a blowout, because it really wasn't a blowout. It was competitive, back and forth for both teams. A lot of good, hard-nosed, smash-mouth football by both running backs and both running back duos with Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame and Katron Allen and Nick Singleton from Penn State. You're thinking that, but the lines were doing well for both teams on the line of scrimmage. Both quarterbacks were living it all on the line. Riley Leonard showing some amazing grit and toughness. Drew Allard showing some amazing skill and ability besides the interception that happened. Tyler Warren being an excellent X factor at tight end for this Nittany Lions team. There was just some star power in this team, some coaching power in this team by James Franklin and Marcus Freeman. Marcus Freeman was going on a heck of a coaching run by winning and leveling up in these ball games. And it was an excellent game. It was an excellent game. It was close, back and forth, and it was on the edge of your seat. Could Mitch Jeter send this team to the national championship? And he hit a bomb and sealed it and won the game. Drew Allard, what could have been? If he would have led that team down to a field goal, it would have been Penn State going to the national championship. That's why I put this game in the top 10, because it was a top 10 game. It really was. It went down to the wire, and it was literally one of the best games I've seen in the playoff in 2024, at least for this season, and one of the best games I've seen in 2024. Notre Dame and Penn State in the College Ball Playoff Orange Bowl semifinal at number 10 on our Frenzy's Top 50 Games of the 2024 college football season list. Number 9, and you're going to think, and I'm going to go to number 9, but Notre Dame wouldn't have won that game, and I think they wouldn't have been where they're at if it wasn't for this game right here. And you're going to think, are you serious? You really put this in the top 10? I did, because I thought it really was a top 10 game. But number 9 on our list is Northern Illinois, NIU versus Notre Dame. You're going to think, are you insane? It was week 2. And no one was thinking, okay, it's kind of a – I mean, Michigan and Texas was on, yes, but there's a lot of other games that were going to be, cupcake, quote-unquote, type games for a lot of teams. We're just getting to the feel of college football. And then this game happened, and it's NBC, and I'm thinking to myself, wait, Notre Dame's in a game with Northern Illinois? The same Notre Dame team that went into College Station in week 1 and beat them on the road, that Notre Dame team? And you're thinking, okay, Notre Dame's going to end up finding a way to win this game in South Bend. And then you're thinking, wait, it's 10-7 in the first quarter NIU. You're thinking, okay, they're going to find a way to win this game. And then it was 17-7 in the second quarter. Then Notre Dame comes back and wins. There comes back and it's, it was 13-7 in the third quarter, in the half, and you're thinking, okay, it was 14-13, right? 14-13. Notre Dame's going to come back and win, and Notre Dame's got it. They're just going to hold off Northern Illinois. They're going to hold them off, but Northern Illinois kept fighting and fighting and fighting, getting extra drives, first downs, and they were showing a lot of grit and heart. And you're thinking, Northern Illinois is giving it to them defensively and offensively, going yard after yard. The biggest player of this game, Hampton, 10 for 19, 198 yards, 1 touchdown for Hampton. Ethan Hampton for Northern Illinois. Brown had 99 yards, 20 carries. You're thinking Riley Leonard, 163 yards, 2 interceptions, 20 for 32. His second game, he also had a rushing touchdown, 16 yards, and 11 carries on the ground. Jeremiah Love had a touchdown, 79 yards, and 11 carries. You're thinking for Notre Dame with Riley Leonard, yeah, he got 163 yards passing, but he's still got to get a little bit of a passing rhythm going because the passing rhythm was a little bit off-kiltered in this game. Threw for 2 picks. They not just had, they had 2 interceptions, 2 costly turnovers, and the third down efficiency was really off. They weren't winning the third down battles, but Northern Illinois was. They had 190 rushing yards on the ground, and they outgained them 6 yards per play compared to their 4.7 yards per play. They were going yard after yard, and Northern Illinois was fighting. Notre Dame was just a little bit off-kiltered. And then all of a sudden, all of a sudden, excuse me, it was late in the game, and it was, like 31 seconds left in the ball game. We're getting close to 31 seconds in the ball game, a minute left in the game, and a big fourth down run happened, and Northern Illinois gets it. Hampton gets the run, first down for Northern Illinois, and it sets them up in field goal range. And you're thinking to yourself, are you serious? It's 14-13, big first down conversion on fourth down, and it sets Northern Illinois up in field goal range. So Thomas Hammond calls a timeout, gets Caden Woodill out there for a 35-yard field goal try, and he nails a 35-yard field goal try. He nails it, gets the field goal, 16-14, and Northern Illinois is up by 2 points. So Notre Dame goes down to midfield, gets to midfield. It's a 60-yard field goal try. It's blocked by Northern Illinois, and Northern Illinois beats Notre Dame in week 2. Chaos in South Bend. The Irish faithful are stunned. Northern Illinois got the win in MAC action, going into Notre Dame and beating them. Marcus Freeman can't believe it. In week 2, a week 2 stunner in Northern Illinois hands Notre Dame its first loss of the year until they make it to the national championship. And if you would have thought at that moment that Notre Dame was going to go to the playoff and not only that, make the national championship game, you would have probably thought everybody was insane. But you have to thank Northern Illinois because Notre Dame lit a fire under Notre Dame, and Notre Dame played consistently better each and every week, and they ran to the playoffs and made it to the national championship game. And they lost to Ohio State, yes, but they made it to the national championship game. So thanks to Thomas Hammock and Northern Illinois for that one. He had a phone call with Marcus Freeman on how to get over the loss, and Marcus Freeman for sure got over the loss. Final score was 16-14. It's a top 10 game because it was one of the biggest upsets of the year, and the game was competitive and close, and we all love a good underdog story. So number 9, Northern Illinois versus Notre Dame is on our list. Huge game. Deserves to be on the top 10. Congratulations to Northern Illinois on making a good run there. Number 8 on our list as we continue, and we are at number 8, and we're at 26 minutes in the show because we've talked a lot here. Number 8, excuse me. Number 8 on our show are here right now is Georgia versus Texas in the SEC championship. Why did you not choose the first game? Well, the first game wasn't close. Georgia versus Texas in the SEC championship. You were thinking to yourself right now, are you serious? But yeah, I mean, it deserves to be there. It was a very close ball game. Final score was Georgia 22, Texas 19. We covered the game. I picked Georgia to win. It went into overtime. I mean, it was back and forth. Carson Beck wasn't producing any offense, but the defense for Georgia was coming alive in the first half, and in the second half, Texas was making some big time explosive plays, and they did score, yeah, but Georgia's defense was hanging them in there and keeping them in there. It wasn't until Carson Beck got hurt, unfortunately, which led to be Carson Beck's final game of his Georgia career. Gunnar Stockton came in right out of the second half and led them down to a touchdown drive. They scored, and in the third quarter, they outscored Texas 10-0 in the third quarter. And then Texas put up 10 out of Georgia's 3 in the fourth, and then they went into overtime. Field goal for Texas, and then Gunnar Stockton and Trevor Etienne led Georgia down the field to score a touchdown to win the game 22-19. It was back and forth, and it was a physical ball game. I thought this was a lot closer. Both lines were not letting up. I thought Georgia's line was better. I thought that the chaos of the game being, back and forth, competitive, and not only that, it drew because it was the SEC championship. I thought that the defenses for both teams were not, were just going after each other's offenses. And I think that the reason why I put it at number 8 is it was a back and forth game between top 5 teams or top 10, top 5, top 5 teams rather. And it was just an epic contest. an epic contest. 22-19 was the final score in overtime. Georgia won the SEC championship. They got a bye, and then Texas ended up going to the college ball playoff anyway. Texas has 3 losses. Both 2 out of 3 of those losses were against Georgia. It wasn't competitive in the first game, but it sure was competitive in this ball game. Number 8, Georgia versus Texas, was for the SEC championship, was number 8 on our list. The other conference championship that was better on our list is number 7 on our list. Number 7 is Clemson versus SMU in the ACC championship. It was a beating in the first half. Clemson was all over SMU in this ball game in the first half, but SMU in the second half came back and kept fighting. They did not give up. They bounced back, and they were going through some adversity, and they went through some adversity in the ACC championship, and they stormed back to a epic game. Clemson versus SMU. No one thought that Clemson was going to get in. We thought that Miami was going to get in, but Syracuse helped Clemson get in by beating Miami late in the game. Thank you to Miami, and shout out to them. It was an epic contest. 21-7 in the first quarter. Clemson was all over them. Kevin Jennings was throwing, turnovers left and right. He had 1 interception in this game. One interception in this game. He had a fumble in this game. It was turnovers left and right in this ball game. Rather, 1 interception, 1 fumble in this ball game. But Kevin Jennings did not let up. He didn't let up. He threw more turnovers in the Penn State game. That we didn't put that on our list, but it was an epic game. Cade Klubnik had 4 passing touchdowns, 262 yards. He had 21 yards on the ground as well. Cade Klubnik had an epic game through the air. First quarter, 21-7 Clemson. They were all over them, and they scored. They came out hot right out of the gate. SMU was on its heels. It was 24-7 in the halftime. 24-3 or 24-7 at half. Clemson was all over them. And then it was tied up. It was 31-14 in the third quarter. And then it ended up being a 17-3 run for SMU in the fourth quarter. They didn't let up. They ended up coming back, and it was 31-31 tie ball game in the fourth. And you're thinking, oh man, they're going to come back. They're going to come back and do this. It was a huge, and do the thing. And how they got there, and I'm going to tell you how they got there. What was, cool, was a, huge game-defying drive, tied the ball game up. SMU went down the field. Clemson's defense was on its heels. Kevin Jennings had a 4-yard pass for a touchdown to Roderick Daniels Jr., and they got in 31-31. The atmosphere, the crowd was electric. It was back and forth. The crowd was insane in Charlotte. Good, tied the ball game, and then all of a sudden, kickoff return, special teams, and they had a good kickoff return. Clemson went down the field, and then they went into field goal or near field goal range with that kickoff return. And you're thinking, oh man, Clemson set them up in their special teams, won them the day because it set them up in field goal range. Nolan Hauser, freshman kicker, 56-yard field goal, bombs it down and kicks it 34-31 to win the game and to win the ACC championship and to get them in to the college football playoff as well. 34-31, final score. Clemson defeated SMU to win the ACC championship and to get them in the playoff. Back and forth game. Everybody loves a good comeback. SMU almost came back and won the game, and I think that is why the game itself was so good, because it was back and forth, and it was electrifying. It was a very competitive ACC championship game, and SMU were they going to complete the comeback? We were on the edge of our seats waiting to see if SMU was going to come back and beat a white-hot Clemson team going into this game. Clemson ended up winning the game, but SMU proved that they deserved to be in the college ball playoff in that game, and then they ended up losing in the first round. But both teams did. But it was 34-31. We put it at number 7 because it was a back and forth and electrifying contest of an ACC championship. Number 7 in this game is Clemson versus SMU in the ACC championship game where Clemson defeated SMU to win the ACC title. Number 6. And you're going to think that this one's funny. You're going to think, honestly, you're going to be like, really, Joel? Why did you make this the the number 6 game of our top 10, the top 10 list for your list. But I'm going to tell you why I made it number 6 in a minute, because of how the rivalry was and how it's energetic and how intense this was. And the moment after the game proved it. Number 6 is Ohio State versus Michigan. The game, this year's incarnation of the game. You're thinking you didn't even cover it. I didn't even cover it because I didn't think it was going to be close. I thought this was the final. This was the year that Ohio State gets over the hump. Boy, was I wrong. Michigan defeats Ohio State, upsets them 13-10 to end the regular season for them, and goes into Columbus and beats them 13-10 and upsets them. And Michigan at 7-5, Ohio State goes. They go to Michigan at 7-5. Ohio State goes to 10-2. Their second loss of the year was against Michigan, the team that they hate the most. They cannot fathom this loss. And the thing is, Ohio State still talks about this loss. They won the national championship. They had an epic run of proportions in the college football playoff, and they won the national title. Best team out of the 12-team field. And they still talk about losing to Michigan. It is eating them alive, and it is. And I get why it would. This is they've lost in 2021, 2, 3, and now 4. This is their 4th straight loss against Michigan. Their 4th straight loss against Michigan, and it's eating them alive. Can Ryan Day get over the hump? That's the biggest question mark heading into 2025. He's already won a national title, so y'all can get off of him because of that. He's an active national championship coach, but the only mission he has now is to get over the hump and turn something around against the team that they just despise the most, and that's Michigan. Back and forth. It was close. Ohio State's offense and play calling was a dud. We didn't know what was going on, especially with that talent. Michigan was giving Ohio State the game as well, but Ohio State was giving it right back to them. 3-0 in the first quarter, Ohio State. Michigan scores 10-7 in the second, and it was 14-10 lead at half. Nobody scored. Excuse me. It was a 10-10 lead at half. Tie ball game. Nobody was given an inch. No third quarter scoring from any team. And then it was a late Jack Sawyer interception, and everybody was, Jack Sawyer. Gus Johnson going off and going crazy about that. And then they ended up giving the ball back to Michigan. With good field position, they went down the field. Davis Warren did. They ran the ball well. First down after first down. They set them up in good field position. Sharon Moore did. Kicked a field goal, 13-10. And you're thinking to yourself, oh, man, Michigan can actually beat this team. They could really do it. Dominic Zavada had probably one of the best, kicking days for Michigan. He has been a epic kicker for Michigan. They went on to beat Alabama in the Rely Quest Bowl too, guys. And kicked a field goal, 21-yard field goal, 45 seconds left, and Sharon Moore and Michigan goes into Columbus and beats them. They hold them, they stop them on defense, and they turn the ball over on downs, and Michigan upsets Ohio State. And then what happened after was they planted the flag in the midfield, which in a rivalry game is a big no-no for Ohio State. Sawyer lost his mind, and Ohio State lost his mind. A big brawl happened. Pepper spray was all over the field. There has been laws now in place of it's committed a felony and a law and illegal to at least in Ohio, to plant your opposing flag on the logo of the O in the shoe or of an Ohio sports stadium. So it's a felony now to plant your flag there and to do that, I guess. I don't have no idea. They're trying to get it to pass, I guess. I don't know. But it's just what makes the sport so good, and how much hatred and how much just despising one another is just, was what made the game magical. One, it was a huge upset. Ohio State was like 21-point favorites in this ball game. It was a huge upset. No one thought Ohio State was gonna lose this game. And number two, it was the theatrics after that left Ryan Day and this team stunned and angry and heartbroken that out of the 4 years that these Ohio State seniors have been in, they have not beaten Michigan, and it haunts them a little bit, and it rightfully so. These fans are angry. Michigan can't get enough of it. They were clowning them, and it was a huge rivalry. And in the theatrics and the upset of it all is why this game's a top 10 game this year for me. That is why this game is number 6, because of how much of a rivalry this game is, and this year proved it. This year he proved it even more on how these two teams just butt heads and go at each other. So number 6, 13-10, Michigan versus Ohio State. Number 6 is where Michigan defeated Ohio State and upset them. That is number 6 of our list. We're getting into the top 5. Top 5 of our list of Frenzy's top 10 games top 50 games of the 2024 college football season. Keep plugging into Pigskin Frenzy on all platforms. Like, subscribe. We're going to post 10 through 1 tomorrow on X and Instagram, which is Friday, on our list, X and Instagram. Like, subscribe, comment down below if you agree or disagree with our list. 4,600 listeners. We're nearing that for our show. Big thank you to everybody who tunes in each and every Friday, Thursday, and Tuesday every week on all platforms. Let's go to number 5, and let's finish off this list. Number 5 on our list, and it is a top 5 game, and I wouldn't want it either way. I said that we were going to do this game, and this was going to be top 5. Number 5, the night before the Ohio State-Michigan game, number 5 is Georgia Tech versus Georgia. This game is top 5 because of how insane it was. Number 5 is Georgia versus Georgia Tech. Georgia defeated Georgia Tech 44-42 in 8 overtimes. I'm going to tell you how we got there. Hold on. Georgia Tech was putting belt to booty on Georgia in this ball game earlier. Georgia ends up coming back. Georgia Tech lets their foot off the gas a tiny bit, and Georgia ends up coming back and storming back to bring this game into overtime. It was a huge game. It was 20-6 at the start of the fourth quarter. 20-6. Aiden Burr, 23-yard field goal. Nate Frazier had a 1-yard touchdown run. They drove down the field 20-13. Touchdown. Haynes King within 5 minutes of the game. It was 27-13. And then late in the game, 33-39, Dominic Lovett from a 17-yard touchdown pass from Carson Beck, 27-20. And then they get the ball back. And then Georgia drives down the field again, and it's 27-27. And you're thinking, 5 minutes, it was 27-13. And then a minute within the game, it's 27-27, and they're tied, and they're about to go into overtime? Like, seriously? Georgia's defense stops them from going into field goal range, and they go into overtime. You're thinking Georgia Tech was all over them in the first half of this game, and they were running the ball like it was nobody's business. Let's go over the running stats. Georgia Tech, 260 rushing yards compared to Georgia's 108. 260 plus yards. Not like I said, rarely. It's hard to win against a team that's doing that, but Georgia found a way to do it. They really did. They had more. They outclassed them in a lot of in pretty much all total yards and stats on paper. Georgia Tech did, but Georgia found a way to get it done because Georgia Tech let their foot off the gas a little bit. But then they go into overtime, and nobody was letting up. Nobody was going back and forth. It was anybody's ball game at that point. First overtime, Georgia gets the ball back, and it's 34-27. First overtime, London Humphreys, 14-yard pass from Carson Beck, 34-27, touchdown. First overtime for Georgia Tech, Eric Singleton, 12-yard touchdown pass from Haynes King, ties the ball game. Second overtime, Haynes King, 1-yard run, failed 2-point pass, 40-34. Cash Jones, 25-yard pass from Carson Beck, touchdown. Failed 2-point conversion, 40-40. We're still going. And then they just keep going back and forth with 2-point conversions. They just keep trading them. They keep failing. And then all of a sudden, all of a sudden, they keep failing. It goes into overtime number 5. They get a 2-point conversion. Georgia does. And then Georgia Tech gets a 2-point conversion. And then in overtime 6 and 7, neither of them give me a 2-point conversion. We're nearing literally almost like midnight, 1 in the morning at this point. We're in the overnight hours of this ball game, and they're just going back and forth. Goes into 8 overtimes. Georgia Tech fails on the 2-point conversion, and then Frazier finally run it in for a 2-point conversion, and Georgia gets the win and walks off of 8 overtimes, 44-42, with a huge 8 overtime win over their rival, Georgia Tech. Georgia storms back. That's number 1. It was a huge blowout. Georgia Tech was all over them. They stormed off. Huge, right? That's number 1. Number 2, they storm back from that. Number 3, it's 8 overtime. They're going back and forth, and they're trading, and they're not letting up. Ratings bonanza. Neither one of them are letting up. It's a competitive football game. The crowd is on their feet. We're on our feet at home, on the edge of our seat, watching at home. It's an epic contest, an epic game. Top 5 game, no doubt about it. It drew. The crowd was on its heels. This could have been an upset. Georgia Tech could have literally handed Georgia its 3rd loss of the year and shook up their college ball playoff hopes, really, within that game. It could have been one of those games. It could have been a do or die going into next week for Georgia if they would have lost this game. There was a lot on the line for Georgia in this game, and Georgia Tech had nothing to lose, and they were just going for it, throwing caution to the wind. That's why this game's a top 5 game. They played like it, back and forth competitiveness. Georgia wins 44-42 in 8 overtimes, and it was an epic classic of a contest. Number 5 is Georgia versus Georgia Tech. Back and forth game. I loved it. Huge game. That is number 5 on our list. Number 4, another Georgia game. Alabama versus Georgia. Huge game. You're going to think that in the first half, it was not a top 5 game, but the ending and the conclusion of it made it a top 5 game. Number 4, Alabama versus Georgia. Alabama defeated Georgia 41-34. Jalen Milroe and this team were all over Georgia in the first half of this ball game. All over them. 21-0 in the first quarter was Alabama. Then they had 9-7 in the second. Georgia came back in the second half. But I'm going to tell you this, all over them on offense. They were all over them. It was a beating at first. I mean, they were starting off hot. Georgia was in their heads. Carson Beck turning the ball over. He had 3 interceptions in this ball game. Not only that, he had 4 turnovers. Carson Beck had 1 fumble and 3 interceptions. He had 4 turnovers against Alabama's team in this game. I don't know what it was, but Georgia, Kirby Smart and Georgia, Alabama is living rent-free in their heads for some reason because they cannot get the job done against Alabama. And it showed in the first half. They were just rattled by Alabama. Alabama was going off on them in this ball game. It was a top 5 matchup for both teams. The hype was there. The ratings were there. Game day was there. The crowd was electric on their heels. Georgia, I picked Georgia to win. Bama was going off. Ryan Williams had an epic game in this. The freshman phenom at receiver who was 17 years old at the time had an epic game-defying play at the end. I'm going to tell you why in a minute. But Alabama was rolling. And then in the second half, just like they did against Georgia Tech later in the season, they fought back. They kept punching back. They went and they punched back and they started scoring. It was a 15-point lead late in the third, and then Georgia outscored them in the fourth, 19-8, and they scored. And all of a sudden, when you look at it at the fourth quarter, you're thinking, all right, 33-21. Okay, 33-28. Alabama, within 5 minutes, is down by 1 score. Georgia scores again, and Georgia has the lead. And then Bama gets the ball back because Bama starts letting their foot off the gas a little bit because they have a history of doing that. Georgia gets the ball back within 2:31. Dylan Bell, a 67-yard touchdown pass from Carson Beck, and they're in the lead, 34-33. Georgia's got the lead. And you're thinking, oh, no, they let them come back. It's an epic game. Failed 2-point conversion. And then all of a sudden, you're thinking right after that, like literally almost first play right after that, Ryan Williams has a 75-yard touchdown bomb from Jalen Milroe, and Ryan Williams punks out two defenders and does an epic spin move at 17 years old and goes for a touchdown. 41-34, Jeremy Bernard gets a two-point conversion pass from Jalen Milroe, and then Georgia's going down the field, almost down the field. It's like in the 30-yard. They were in like close to the red zone, around the 30-yard line. Carson Beck launches it to the end zone and turns the ball over. Alabama seals it. 41-34. It drew. The crowd was into it. I was on the edge of my seat. I was thinking, this game's over. And then I blink, and Georgia has the lead in the fourth quarter. They're coming back. And then Ryan Williams gets the ball and gets a touchdown. Epic game. Alabama wins the ball game, 41-34. Epic game from both teams. Number four on our list is Alabama versus Georgia because of a classic game it was. It was a top 5 game for sure. They delivered a classic in Tuscaloosa, back and forth late in the end, a cinematic ending. Bama gets it, and Alabama is still the biggest kryptonite for Georgia and Kirby Smart in this point in time. They play each other next year in Athens. We're going to see how that goes in 2025. Let's see if they deliver another all-time classic game. But this one was a very good game. It was a top 5 game of the 2024 season. Number 4, Alabama versus Georgia on our list. Number 3 on our list. And I think this game, honestly, is an epic game. I mean, it was, in my opinion, the best game out of the college football playoff. Hands down. Texas versus Arizona State in the CFP Peach Bowl quarterfinal. Number 3 on our list of the 2024 season is this game. This game was epic. Literally epic. Texas 39, Arizona State 31 in double overtime was the final score of this ball game. Sam Leavitt throws a game-sealing interception to Texas, and Texas wins the game. Let me go and tell you something. Texas was laying it on Arizona State early in the game, 14-3. And they were dominating the game. They ended up going up 17-3 at half, and 17-3 at half. Arizona State ended up scoring 5 points in the third quarter, and then in the fourth quarter, like you're thinking, okay, Texas has got this. Texas is laying it on them. Their offense is working at a rhythm. They're out physicaling them. They are just laying it on Arizona State at this point. And then in the fourth quarter, all of a sudden, they outscored Texas. I mean, early in the fourth, Texas scores again, and you're thinking, okay, at that point, it's over. Texas scores early in the fourth, it's over. But then Arizona State, in the remaining few minutes, scores 16 unanswered. They score 16 unanswered, and they're back in it. Cam Skatteboo's like, you know what? I'm going to put this team on my back. Cam Skatteboo ends up becoming the MVP of the Peach Bowl, even though they lost. And he deserves it because he put the team on its back in the fourth quarter. Look at this. Cam Skatteboo did 143 yards, 30 carries, and 2 touchdowns. He had 99 yards and 8 receptions, 99 yards receiving. He had a 42-yard touchdown pass to McLean in this ball game to put him on to put him back in the game. 2 touchdowns. He had a big red zone reception to put him into the red zone. Big reception to put him into the red zone. He ran the ball, 2 touchdowns, 143 yards, 30 carries. He also had a big 42-yard touchdown pass to put him back in the game. Cam Skatteboo did it all within the past 6 minutes of the ball game. Unbelievable. Back and forth. Sam Leavitt played a huge factor in it as well. 222 yards, 24 for 46, 60 yards, 13 carries on the ground, rather. But they were going off. Defensively, they turned they needed an interception. Quinn Ewers, I don't know what the play call was here, throws a bomb down the field, and Arizona State gets a pick. And then all of a sudden, boom, right? And then all of a sudden, bad calls happen, bad penalties and bad targeting calls happen. And you're thinking in the game itself, you're thinking, oh, bad calls go against Arizona State. or go against Arizona State. Texas had a targeting it was a targeting, but they didn't call it targeting. It should have been targeting. If it would have been targeting, Arizona State probably would have won the game in the fourth quarter. And then all of a sudden, they give the ball back to Texas. Bert Auburn misses two crucial field goals in this game, and it sends Texas into double overtime against Arizona State. It was unbelievable. A cinematic game, and the Rose Bowl was coming on at that point as well. Huge game. 39-31 was the final score. Sam Leavitt, Texas scores late in the game, gets a touchdown. All of a sudden, Sam Leavitt gets the ball back in double overtime, gets a game-sealing interception, throws the game-sealing interception to Texas, and Texas goes on to the Cotton Bowl to eventually play Ohio State, 39-31. It was an epic comeback from Arizona State, and it was all placed on the shoulders of Cam Scatterbo in this game. Epic performance by Kenny Gillingham. Congratulations on the Sun Devils getting them there. Cannot wait to see what they do in 2025. Curious to see how Texas is going to be in 2025 as well. Back and forth game in the fourth quarter. It's set up for a cinematic ending and a cinematic, setup for overtime, for double overtimes, and it was a classic of a playoff game. It was the best playoff game I've watched in the 12-team season. For this field, best game I've watched in the 12-team field this year. Best playoff game I've seen out of this field was this game. Number 3 is Texas versus Arizona State. Cinematic ending. Cinematic things happen in this ball game. Back and forth game in double overtime. Texas won. But number 3 is Texas versus Arizona State in the CFP Peach Bowl quarter final. Epic game on our list. Number 2 on our list. Number 2 and number 1. Guys, keep plugging into Pigskin Frenzy if you like what you're listening to. If you like what you're listening to, guys, keep on plugging in. 4,600 listeners coming up soon. Thank you for listening. We're going to post the list on X and Instagram tomorrow. Agree or disagree, comment down below on both those posts. Here comes number 2 and number 1 of our list of Frenzy's top 50 games for number 2020 for top 50 games for the 2024 season for college football. Number 2. Ohio State versus Oregon in the regular season. Ohio State versus Oregon is number 2 on our list. You're thinking, really? But why is it not number 1? I'm laughing because you're going to figure out what number 1 is in a little bit. And I've already foreshadowed number 1. I've already foreshadowed it enough. So you're probably thinking, okay, I know what's coming for number 1. But hear me out. Ohio State and Oregon delivered a classic in Autzen Stadium this season. They really did. October 12th was a date that had probably some premier college football games in that weekend. It was an epic weekend of college football, probably one of the best weekends, if not the best weekend of college football this season. Ohio State and Oregon were just trading back and forth the whole game. Defensively and offensively, it was a show. They weren't letting up. Ohio State went up 7-6 in the first quarter. Then Oregon outscored them 16-14 in the second. Ohio State had 7-0 in the third. But then in the fourth, 10-3 Oregon. Dylan Gabriel is going off on the defense, and then it ended up being 32-31, and it was a classic of a game, just going back and forth and just trading score-wise, competitive-wise. Dylan Gabriel in this ball game was sensational, making big-time throws, 2 touchdowns, 341 yards, 23 for 34. Jordan James, 115 yards, 1 touchdown. Dylan Gabriel also had a touchdown, 32 yards, and 4 carries in this ball game. Evan Stewart had 149 yards and a touchdown with 7 receptions. Tez Johnson had 75 yards and 1 touchdown as well. Will Howard had 2 touchdowns, 326 yards, 28 for 35. Quinshaw Judkins had a touchdown in this ball game as well. Henderson had 87 yards. Jeremiah Smith, 100 yards, 1 touchdown, 9 receptions. Amike Abuka, 1 touchdown, and he also had 93 yards receiving in this ball game. They were just trading back and forth, making big time plays to set them up for scores, and then it came down to whoever had the ball last. It really did. This was a game that whoever had the ball last, classic of a game, and time was running out. Oregon 32-31 in this ball game. Let's give you just a scoring summary and a drive-by-drive summary here. In the game, Dylan Gabriel had a 27-yard run for a touchdown in this ball game, like at 28-29. Jaden Fielding had a field goal in this game within 6 minutes left to make it 31-29. This was the fourth quarter alone and had 3 lead changes alone. And then Atticus Sappington had a 19-yard field goal that drove down the field late with 1:47 left and kicked the field goal and nailed it. 32-31 in this ball game, and Oregon had the lead. And then all of a sudden, Will Howard was going to try to take the game into his own hands. He took the game into his own hands. They were trying to run the clock out, and they were trying to get down to the field to set him up in a field goal range, and then all of a sudden, they weren't going to spike it or throw the ball away. The clock was an issue in this one. Will Howard and company did not pay attention. Clock management cost Ryan Day and Ohio State in this one. Will Howard did not look at the clock. He slid, and the clock hit 0 as he slid, and that was the ball game. Oregon defeated Ohio State in a classic of a game as they both traded back and forth. Running back-wise, game-wise, it was an epic proportion of a game. 32-31, Ohio State versus Oregon. Oregon defeated Ohio State in Austin. That's number 2 on my list because it drew. Everybody was watching it on NBC. Crowd in Austin was packed. They rushed the field after. Will Howard didn't pay attention to the clock. It was a game. There were some game-defying moments in the game. Dylan Gabriel with a 27-yard touchdown run set him up for a win, and it was a remembering game because Ohio State went on to play them in the Rose Bowl, and it was revenge for them in that Rose Bowl game. It set up for another type playoff game, and it set up for a rematch, right? So it was a cinematic game for the future, right? So back and forth game between two Titans, top 10, near top 5 matchup for two Titans in the Big Ten. And this was going to set up them for whoever was going to win this game was most likely going to go to the Big Ten championship. And it could have set up a rematch of the Big Ten championship as well. Oregon won, set them up for success to go to the Big Ten championship and to eventually win the Big Ten title. So number 2, Ohio State versus Oregon is on our list. For number 2 on our list for Frenzy's top 50 games of the 2024 college football season. It was a classic of a game. There's no denying that and what the implications were of this ball game. Both teams undefeated, both teams vying for a Big Ten title game spot in the eventually in the season. This could have playoff implications, which it sort of did, but not really because both teams ended up going. And you're thinking at the time, like, this could change the whole course of the Big Ten. And it was just a lot on the line in this game. And it was a huge, between two teams and top-tier programs, huge regular season matchup. That's why it's number 2 on our list. And that's why I put it there, because it drew, right? It just drew. Number 1, and guys, keep plugging along. Keep following along. We're going to post the list tomorrow, 10 through 1 tomorrow on X and Instagram on Friday. Keep following on @Pigskin_Frenzy on both accounts, X and Instagram. Who is ready for number 1? We've been counting it down, hyping it up, the number 1 game of Frenzy's top 50 games of the 2024 college football season. Let's do it. Number 1, our number 1 game that we have picked for this go-round and this year's go-round of Frenzy's top 50 games of the 2024 college football season and Frenzy's games of the top games of the 2024 just regular college football season. Number 1 for this season and for this coming season, and number 1 game right here. We foreshadowed it. Vanderbilt versus Alabama. Number 1 on our list. We started the list with Vanderbilt. We end the list with Vanderbilt. We go back to where we started. Remember when I said on episode 200 that with Vanderbilt and Virginia Tech, that with this game, this was going to be literally this is going to kickstart an epic season for Vanderbilt. And probably one of the best seasons they have had since 2013. Let me go on and tell you something. It really did. A week prior, Georgia and Alabama happened, and Alabama came off with an epic game. They were the number 1 team in the country after that point. And everyone was thinking, okay, Bama is just roll through Vanderbilt in Nashville. This is a cupcake game, and Bama sort of listened to the hype. Diego Pavia has a history of upsetting teams. And this is where a lot of people did not think about this. And this is where shame on me, Joel. I didn't think about this when Diego Pavia was in the state of New Mexico last year with the Lobos, and they ended up going to Auburn and upsetting Auburn. And not only upsetting Auburn, Diego Pavia beat down Auburn. Diego Pavia has beaten Auburn twice, one in a New Mexico State uniform, and now in a Auburn, in a Vanderbilt uniform. He's done, quite well with this, with against the state of Alabama. So who knows, right? But Vanderbilt won the game, upset Alabama 40-35. It was the greatest upset of the year. It was the best upset of the year, and it was the number one game because of it. Let me tell you why. Let's start off. Going into this game, like I said, that everybody overlooked Vanderbilt. Alabama overlooked Vanderbilt, and Kalen DeBoer may have overlooked Vanderbilt. Kalen DeBoer got dealt with a harsh reality of when you overlook somebody, not just in the SEC, but getting a team ready in the SEC in general, because on any given Saturday in college football, something can happen and magic can happen. And this game was magic. Magic, pure magic. I didn't expect it to be this way, but it did. The game started off in the first quarter. Vanderbilt ended up going down the field and scoring, making it 7-0. And you're thinking, all right, Vandy striking first and starting off hot. Diego Pavia and Cedric Alexander, who were both coming back, by the way. Watch out for Vandy in 2025. And they ended up scoring 7-0. Bama ends up, coming in, and then Jalen Milroe on that drive. Pick six by Auburn. Missed the PAT. It's 13, and then Bama ends up scoring, makes it 7. It's 13-7 in the first quarter. And then it ends up being 23-14 at half with Vandy having the lead. And you're thinking, okay, Bama's going to end up coming back. It's the SC Network. They're going to end up coming back. They're going to get them ready. Third quarter happens. Vandy scores again. And then you're thinking 23-7, and then it ends up being 29-21, or excuse me, I think in there it was 23-21, 30-21 within the late of the third quarter. Then ends up being in the third quarter, 30-28, and it's back and forth, but Vandy still has the lead. By the way, Vandy did not let the lead hold up. I mean, they held the lead up the whole game. Bama did not lead the game once by the scorecards. They didn't lead the game once, at all. Vandy held the lead the entire ball game. Of course, they're going to win that way, but they held the lead the entire ball game. Bama would come back and score, but Vandy would answer right back with a touchdown to put the game even further in a hole. 28-33, Bama ends up turning the ball over. Turnovers were a crucial part of this game. Interception, not only that, they had a fumble late in the game, and Vandy got the ball. Two turnovers. Vanderbilt beat them in time of possession, 42 minutes compared to their 17 minutes, 42:08 compared to their 17:52. And Vanderbilt ended up just beating them thoroughly, holding on to the lead, draining clock, and going out and furthering their lead when they would try to come back and score even more. Vanderbilt had a game plan, and they executed it to a T in this ball game. It was the best upset all year. Bama overlooked them. We all overlooked Vanderbilt, and this was the emergence of Diego Pavia even more, and this Vanderbilt Commodore team along with Clark Lee as head coach. He won Coach of the Year out of this. Diego Pavia won Newcomer of the Year out of this. They went on to have a great year. They went on to have more upsets in this year. They ended up beating teams like Kentucky and Auburn, and they ended up going to a bowl game and beating and blowing out Georgia Tech in the Birmingham Bowl and winning their bowl game. Clark Lee doing stuff that hasn't been done since James Franklin was there in 2013. They have had their best season as a program since then. Clark Lee has literally changed the trajectory of this Vanderbilt program. This game was magic. As much as Alabama later in the game trying to keep scoring and trying to keep coming back, they would make one crucial mistake, and then Vanderbilt would capitalize on it. And then Vanderbilt would drain clock, and then anything that they did, Vanderbilt would try to get get after them and do it better. Alabama's defense got sliced and diced, and then they ended up getting scored on, and Vanderbilt ended up coming back and winning the ball game. The crowd stormed the field. Field goal post in downtown Nashville on Broadway Street. Bama, hearts broken, shocked, and Kalen DeBoer got hit with a ton of bricks in that game. A week after beating Georgia in a miraculous cinematic game, this game becomes a miraculous cinematic game with the other foot, and Vandy ends up getting their first win against a top 5 program and a number one team in college football in their program's history. This was their first top 5 win in program history. Not only that, this is their first win against a number 1 ranked team in program history. And it was against the team that's given them trouble over the years in Alabama. That is cinema. Classic cinema. Upset of the year. Back and forth game late in the game, an underdog story. Diego Pavia and company in Vanderbilt didn't let up, and it showed everybody that Vanderbilt is changing the trajectory of their program. Alabama had to go back to the drawing board. They ended up having a not so good October. They ended up winning against South Carolina, but losing against Tennessee. Ended up, going to LSU or going to play LSU, losing to LSU, right? Ended up winning some, and then they lost to Oklahoma. It ended up being a difficult year, 9-4 for them, with Vandy being one of those losses. What an epic game. It was the number 1 game on our list, and it's a number 1 on our game list for a reason. This was the best game in college football this year. Hands down. There's nothing better in this year to me than Vanderbilt versus Alabama because of the magnitude of the game and how important and how big this game was this year. It showed a lot of different things. That one, the end of Alabama being a dominant force is not really, I wouldn't say it's, I would say it's truly over because Nick Saban is not there, but they are a good team, but they're not a chokehold force on college football anymore. It showed that. That's number 1. It showed that Alabama has some vulnerability. Number 2, it showed the rise of how Diego Pavia can be a solid quarterback heading into this year or going for the rest of that year and going on until 2025. That's number 2. Number 3, it showed that Clark Lee is trying to change the trajectory of Vanderbilt and trying to tell everybody that, hey, we're serious. And it showed. It was a magic game, a cinema game. Vanderbilt versus Alabama, number 1 game of Frenzy's top 50 games of the 2024 season for college football season. That was it. Number 1, Vanderbilt versus Alabama, where Vanderbilt defeated Alabama 40 to 35 in Nashville. The number 1 game of Frenzy's top 50 games of the 2024 college football season. We're going to post 10 through 1 tomorrow, and we're going to post it on X and Instagram. Follow along, like, comment down below. If you agree or disagree with my list, let me know for sure. That does it and concludes our top 50 list of Frenzy's top games for the 2024 college football season. Guys, that wraps it up. Big thank you for taking some time out of your Thursday to just sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. Guys, if you're liking everything, guys, keep plugging in Pigskin Frenzy. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple. All you got to do is just share around with others and follow on there as well. Guys, guys. Comment down below and share around with others and follow on there as well. Comment down below on X and Instagram at Pigskin_Frenzy. Follow like pages there. You're going to get episode updates, going to get news and highlights from across college and NFL football. College football, occasionally on NFL. Trivia posts on Instagram stories. Go and answer today's college football question as well as all things up to date for Pigskin Frenzy. Exclusive content, reels, you name it. All platforms for Pigskin Frenzy. There's the website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com with all things Pigskin Frenzy. We will be back Tuesday, or hopefully be back Tuesday. I will be going on vacation soon down to Mississippi, so hopefully, maybe Tuesday, we will be doing this. Maybe we will have to see if I am back in the area on Tuesday for a show for Pigskin, but we will be back Tuesday. TBD. If not, we're going to go over the latest on the college ball playoff expansion and talk about the rumors of there and the meetings and what it all means for college football on that day. So until Tuesday and until those talks and the news out of college football on Tuesday, I'm Joel Norris signing off. We may and we'll most likely will see you then. For everybody out there, guys, please and always, we love you. We're praying for you all. Without Jesus, we wouldn't have this platform to be doing this show. So we thank God for giving us this platform, Jesus. We love him. And if you want to talk about Jesus, come to know Jesus, message me on X or Instagram. We'll talk about it, and we will discuss Jesus, our Lord and Savior. We wouldn't be, having this platform and doing this show and having the audience listen to us without this platform. So thank you to everybody who follows along and listens. And thank you to Jesus, most importantly, for giving us this platform to do this Pigskin Frenzy show and podcast. With all you guys, I'm Joel Norris again, signing off. We will see you then. For everybody out there, please and always stay the course.